Hey soldiers, Peter Schiff is out there saying that the dollar has got a death blow coming up, okay? That's going to knock it out, and as a result, one asset in particular is going to appreciate like wildfire. However, we're going to tell you why that really won't be such a good thing. Even if you own this asset, it will protect you, but its increase in value will actually be a negative sign for the economy, even though it will be a positive sign if you own it, okay? Because you'll be, again, protected from the slings and arrows of the falling dollar, of the diminishing dollar. It is losing its influence around the world. As a result, other currencies, fiat, but other assets in particular, hard assets, are going to come to the fore. Listen, go ahead, hit subscribe. Become a soldier of finance. Easy to do. Just hit that subscribe button and enlist. Let me know you enlisted in the comments. I will salute you. All right. I also need everybody here to hit the thumbs up button. Hitting that thumbs up says, hey, I vote for this content to be sent out by the algorithm to people who may not have had the chance to view it yet. Okay, so hit the thumbs up. I really appreciate that. I also need you to share this. You're going to want to share this with friends and loved ones. So I salute all of the soldiers of finance out there, those present and those yet to enlist, which I'm sure you're doing right now. Peter Schiff, a death blow is coming for the dollar, and people will run, not walk, to gold. There's been a lot of talk lately about de-dollarization. Certainly has. We've talked about it extensively on the channel because it's an important subject. I bet you that many of the assets that most of us own are, denominated in dollars, okay? And the situation is going to become challenging, going to become complex and complicated, but not impossible, okay? To all those out there who say, oh, it's just doomsayer, doom and gloom, fear porn. No, we have to be adult about this, and we have to say, okay, this is a situation that's being presented to us, and we have to overcome. Okay, we have to adapt to it and overcome. When I was a firefighter, we didn't look at a burning building and say, oh my God, everything's falling apart. It's the end of the world. No, we said, okay, let's do our jobs. Let's figure it out. We're not going to panic. We're going to get in here and deal with the situation at hand. All right, so de-dollarization rolls on. As just one example, the BRICS nations recently announced they are developing a new currency. We talked about that. Peter Schiff recently appeared on Commodity Culture with Jesse Day to talk about the trajectory of the dollar. He said that the death blow for the dollar is coming, and when it does, people will flock to gold. Now, some people might say, oh yeah, the BRICS what do they think they're doing? They're in no position to challenge the dollar. Well, they certainly are if they back this currency in some way by commodities. And Saudi Arabia is looking at joining the BRICS. Russia's already a part of BRICS. Okay, a lot of the countries in Africa want to join BRICS. What do all these nations have in common? Well, they have something called oil, all right? Saudi Arabia is the de facto head of OPEC and OPEC Plus. They basically, what they say, the organization pretty much does. So if the BRICS nations decide that they want to back the currency that they're developing by gold and or oil, probably will end up being a basket of some type of commodities, then, yeah, I think that should be taken extremely seriously. We've gotten into this mode here over the past, 100 years in America that, we got it all figured out. Can't tell us nothing. I correspond with people on Facebook all the time about scientific issues. And when you come up with a theory of something that hasn't been proven, they act like this just could not exist. And we'll prove it. And my response is, prove that it ain't that way. Okay? There has been plenty of speculation about de-dollarization recently. But is it a real threat? Or is it just talk and hyperbole? Peter Schiff says none of it is hyperbole, and all of it will come to pass. The only thing that's surprising about the dollar's reserve status is that it still has it. We as America still have the reserve currency. That is the shocking thing. Despite everything we've done, we still have it. Peter said he thinks the current financial crisis that is just starting will ultimately deliver the death blow to that status. People are still reluctant to call it a financial crisis, but that's exactly what it is. Except it's bigger in scale and it's going to be far more impactful than the 2008 crisis. Let me go back to the people who say this is fear porn. Wouldn't you rather know? Okay, would you just rather wake up one morning and, have it thrust upon you? That goes from fear porn to, being you figured out. It's probably going to result in even more aggressive and reckless monetary policy and fiscal policy. I agree with that. One hand washes the other. So with regard to the monetary policy, we're going to see increased rate hikes. We're going to see more inflation because if you measure inflation, not in the way that a politician measures it today in order to stay in office, but in the real, 1980s way, then inflation is not what they say it is. They say it's under 10%. No, if you use the original calculation, it is certainly not under that level. So we got trifecta here. We got interest rates that are going to be going up. We got inflation. And as we talked about in the video just yesterday, we've got low wages. Okay, we're in the second year straight of declining wages here in America, although we're still dealing with inflation. Oh, and let's just go ahead and round it out to a foursome. With regard to the fiscal policy, we're going to see higher taxes. There is no way that any economist from Yale or any government official can tell me that we're not going to see higher taxes when we got we might as well go ahead and say $32 trillion in debt and rising. We're going up to 50 trillion by 2032. And we're not going to have higher taxes? Okay. I talk to people every day. I talked to a young lady yesterday, potential client, and I was showing her a product, and she was like, this is an insurance product. And she was saying, I got a problem with the cost of insurance. I can put my money elsewhere and I won't have to pay any. That's not true. You can put your money in a bank, and while they will not proactively charge you, you're going to be paying a cost because the interest rate they give you is down here and inflation is up here. So you put your money in a bank, you put your money under your mattress. It's going to lose money, okay? You put your money in a brokerage and you will be exposed to some risk, but you will also, if you do it right, pick quality stocks, you will be exposed to reward as well. You could also go for an index fund. So the brokerage does have fees associated with it, right? So there's a cost there. If you have a mutual fund, there are going to be costs associated with that. You got a dividend paying stock, whether you reinvest that dividend or cash out, you're still going to be taxed on it, right? All right, so all of these different vehicles have a structure set up whereby you're either going to pay now or you're going to pay later. Okay, that's just how it works. Now, there is one that we'll talk about in a minute, and Peter Schiff, talked about gold, that works a little differently, but its whole paradigm is different from the investments that we just talked about. So I was talking to this young lady about an insurance policy that will have her pay now, the taxes, that is, and then in the future, she'll have a bucket of money that has already been taxed and is now not subject to taxation that she can dip into. And I made her understand that, there's a cost to put your money everywhere. No one's going to hold on to your money and not assess a cost to it in some way, shape, or form. And if they say they're going to do that, then, I don't know, you might want to take your money elsewhere. Could be like a Sam Bankman-Fried type of setup there. All right, so Peter Schiff goes on to say that, Americans, our living standards are going to get lower. A lot of Americans are going to suffer from lower living standards. That's going to pump energy into the current crime crisis, especially when you have these DAs who want to pursue policies that are even for the most violent criminals, not penal, not punishment. Okay, they want to do all sorts of other things and social justice and that sort of thing. So our living standards will decline because we'll see higher crime. We'll see higher prices for everything. Okay, we'll see higher taxation. Okay, all the while, if the 2-year trend continues, lower wages. So that's the state of America today, and it will only worsen if and when we lose the reserve currency status. All right, so the author asked Peter if he thought there's a risk of hyperinflation in the U.S. Peter said there's always a risk in any country that has a fiat currency, and that risk is higher now than it's ever been. But even if the U.S. avoids hyperinflation, such as people experienced in Zimbabwe, Peter said he thinks Americans will face very high rates of inflation for many years to come. Quote, I mean elevated double-digit inflation, and where the first digit might not be a 1. So let's just be as conservative as possible based on what he just said. He's talking about possibly seeing 20% inflation. Okay. Now, is he Kreskin? Does he have a crystal ball? Absolutely not. Could he be wrong? He could. But when we look at the other factors that he is citing here and that we have cited many times on the channel, it is highly likely, just based on the principles of macroeconomics, that this thing goes in the direction that he's forecasting. Jesse also asked about the banking sector. Peter said that the entire sector is insolvent, and that includes the too big to fail banks. Those banks would fail if the government stepped out of the way. Peter also pointed out that the claim that deregulation caused the problem is a myth. It was excessive regulation. That is the reason the banks got into this predicament in the first place. And of course, without the Fed holding interest rates so low for so long, they wouldn't have even been able to have loaded up their balance sheet with all this debt. Okay? So, what does this mean for gold? Remember, the central banks are buying gold like nobody's business. That's probably the next video we're going to do, is the latest central bank. And when I say central bank, I'm talking most of them. Their latest gold haul. Okay? They have been just loading up on gold. Now, this would make a lot of sense for the BRICS countries if they are planning on backing a currency with a basket of commodities that include gold. There's no question that just like there's going to be a run on the banks, many people are trying to get their money out of the banks. They're going to be running to put it into gold. No money is safe now in the bank because either your bank is going to fail and you will lose your money, or it will lose purchasing power. So either way, you should withdraw your money now. And this is what Peter Schiff is saying. You have to decide on your own. Don't panic, all right? And just run down to the bank tomorrow morning and, demand all of your money. This is but one opinion, okay? Don't stick the money under your mattress because it's going to lose purchasing power. There too, you've got to convert it into real money. You've got to convert it into gold. Now, gold's purpose, a little different from a lot of the investments that we talked about earlier. The purpose of gold is to maintain your purchasing power. So as we talked about in the beginning, a lot of people, gold's going to $10,000. I hope not. And the reason I hope not is because if gold goes to $10,000, we are living in the Weimar Republic. We are living in Zimbabwe in terms of inflation, okay? Just out of control. That would destroy most Americans, the vast majority. And when that happens financially, you're going to see you would see an all new type of society where the rule of law is just like, yeah, right, I'm hungry, whatever. Okay, you'd have a lot of social unrest and upheaval. And some might argue, hey, that's what we need to get back to some sense of normalcy and a country run by adults. I just ask you to remember these things like, okay, the Soviet experiment or the Russian experiment with communism, where they went and turned into the Soviets, that lasted the better part of a century. Okay, so these things, they lasted the better part of a century. So the Romanovs were, I think that happened around World War I when they were taken out. And then the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So, and you could check the references on that just to, keep me honest. But I would prefer, because again, gold's purpose is to preserve your purchasing power, okay? If King Tut was revived today and we gave him back all of the gold that he was buried with, he would be just as wealthy, and that's considerably wealthy, but he would be just as wealthy as he was when he died, approximately. Would he be fantastically more wealthy? No, because gold's purchasing power is, fairly steady. Over thousands of years, we can look back and see that. The movie Goldfinger, where Auric Goldfinger, and if you say Auric, what kind of a name is that? If you take the first two letters of the first name, Auric, A-U-R-I-C is how you spelled the name. A-U is the atomic symbol for gold. Auric Goldfinger and James Bond playing a game of golf. Bond threw out a 25-pound gold bar. It hits the green like with a thud, symbolizing how dense that gold is. And throughout the course of the conversation, they talked about the fact that it was worth $5,000. Okay, and this was 25 pounds, and actually it was worth 5,000 British pounds. Okay, well, that was then. Now, 1 pound contains 16 ounces. Okay, 27 pounds, 27 times 16, whatever the hell that is. 1 ounce of gold today is hovering around $2,000. So that 25 pounds worth of gold cost a hell of a lot more today than 5,000 British pounds. All right. So what can we do about this? Well, look, guys, I always say this. There are really only a few things that can be done. There's not a whole bunch of solutions here. Okay. But there are some key solutions. First of all, never vote for a Democrat. These are not your parents or your grandparents' Democrats. These are either avowed Marxists or, stealth Marxists. That's the way I see it. These people are anything but liberal. They're persecuting the hell out of anyone who is outside of the paradigms that they want to see established. They don't understand economics. Okay, that's a very key piece of this. They don't understand economics, but they think they do, and that's dangerous. So they are destroying opportunity, and you can see that. And look, a lot of the Republicans, again, just because you're a Republican does not mean you're not a leftist. Okay, there are some very high-placed Republicans who are definitely leftist. Mitch McConnell is one of those people. Even Dan Crenshaw shows flashes of that totalitarianism when you look at his stances on the Second Amendment. Okay? So just because it has an R behind its name doesn't mean anything. In order to reverse this slide, we've got to really look for some really good alternatives to the political representation we have out there right now. And we cannot be afraid to say, you know what, you're not working out, I'm going to fire you. There's a saying in entrepreneurialism, hire slowly, fire quickly. Okay, so do your due diligence. I like this guy, Vivek Ramaswamy. He is a new face out there. He recently spoke at the NRA convention and had some very powerful things to say that Don Lemon didn't like. Don Lemon's an idiot. He didn't like what Vivek Ramaswamy had to say. I might put that clip up tomorrow to examine that. But guys, take a look. And we've talked about gold extensively on the channel, how you can obtain it, how you need to store it. Because again, if society's falling, but you really want gold in your house, we'll talk more about that. All right. And for now, I want you to just take a look at Vivek Ramaswamy. I'm certainly not endorsing this person. I'm just saying, look at the guy. He's a presidential candidate. Look at him in terms of an alternative to the Coke or Pepsi that we are being, force-fed from the Democrat and Republican parties. Also, look, Take a look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, I know a lot of people go, Robert F. Kennedy, he's a rabid environmentalist. Yeah, he is. But you know what we have? He is a Kennedy, I think in most respects, he's a Kennedy Democrat. Now, he's not my cup of tea in terms of casting a vote for him. I tell you that right now. But he is a breath of fresh air. I think they're going to try to scuttle him. You're going to find out that back when Robert F. Kennedy was in third grade, he pulled a girl's hair, and he's a big-time misogynist, has been ever since he was in third grade. That's the kind of smear campaign they're going to put out for him. Listen, Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil, and President Xi of China, they just met and did some powerful things with regard to backing away from the dollar and diminishing the dollar's dominance. This thing is accelerating. Check it out. It's part and parcel of why Peter Schiff believes that gold is the answer. All right, guys, I'll talk to you soon.